Hello, my name is Daniel Stillwell. I am the editor of the IFTA e-newsletter. We are here in Aberdeen, Scotland at the Congress, and we have with us Shanika Torres and Alyssa Young. Thank you so much for being here. You are here to talk about your presentation and some other things that are going on in your professional life.
Yeah.
So start us off.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. I feel like it's an honor. Our work is very passionate for us, I would say.
Yeah.
I let Shanika always lead the way.
No, that's not accurate. She's a great party starter. But I think our work is obviously centered in culturally competent clinical supervision, culturally attuned, and one of the things that helped us connect is we've never had counselors or clinicians, supervisors of color. Mm-hmm. We've never had supervisors of color. And I feel like that definitely shaped who we were as clinicians initially, and then we kind of started, as we became more self-aware, like, this isn't my identity, this is not who I am, but didn't really have a name for it. And then as we've been going through our doctoral program and really unpacking a lot of that identity stuff, realizing I'm a Black therapist. Like, for me, I own that, I'm okay with that. And even Alyssa and I talked about our identity, even though I come from a mixed cultural background, I feel like I've always ran away from the Black part, almost oh no, I'm not that kind of Black.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's no, I'm Black, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's all right, and I own that. Mm-hmm. But what about
I think for me, I've always identified as biracial, half Black, half Hispanic, but it's trying to what does that Hispanic part of me look like in the therapy room, because I don't speak Spanish. And so how can I still bring out that Latina side of me? Mm-hmm. And how does that really integrate with my Black side of me? And what does this mean to have these different parts of my identity? And how helpful it would have been if I would have had a supervisor of color to help bring that out for me, because I grew up in the white suburbs in the United States, and so I've always been from this white perspective in my education.
Yeah. And I you know what I think about, I think sometimes there is this belief that people of color are safer, but that doesn't always translate either. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, it's about intentionality, and if a person has awareness about themselves, then they can help you become more aware about yourself as well. So it's that modeling behavior. And I think as we've done our own work, which I think is one of the best things that I've experienced in Antioch University, is how intentional they are about really helping clinicians peel back those layers. Where is this coming from? Why do you think the way that you think? Where is that rooted in? Mm-hmm. Asking questions I've never even asked before, been asked before. It was some challenging work.
I think what was also challenging but good is that when Shanika, we both knew we came from multicultural backgrounds, and so I would be I kind of experienced this, and she'd be I did too, and I'm wait a second, this is a thing. And so it was just that reassurance, and then we could come together and really unpack it. It wasn't the exact same, obviously, but there were similarities that allowed us to unpack what that meant for us, and then what, if we were to supervise these, what we would hope they would gain that we didn't gain during our supervision experience.
All right, well, now you have to tell me.
Well, I feel just I hear this, at the risk of sounding cliche, being your true authentic self, really just be who you would be no matter what setting. If one of my clients, were to say, of course, culture, context, everything makes sense given context, but if I'm working with a Black client, I'm going to use language that sounds familiar. If my client says, "Oh, this happened to me last weekend," I'm gonna be "Girl, stop! You're lying." And it's not me. It's not crossing a boundary, but that's the language that we use. And she's "No, girl, I wish I was." And at the end of the day, that there's a sense of okay, well, what do you think you could have done different? So there's still therapy interventions. You're still doing clinical work, but it's the sense of I don't know, maybe assurance. I feel more confident that the work that I'm doing and the language that I'm using doesn't change the quality of therapy that I give. And I think when I've had white supervisors who have either looked at my videos or given me feedback, it's you need to clean up that language, or it feels a little too conversational, and the client might misperceive it as a friendly relationship. So you really just want to make sure you're holding strong boundaries. But realizing that where that comes from, there's that Eurocentric understanding of relation and connection, and it's oh, that's your own projection. Like, that's not how people of color, connect.
So the way we encourage people to do that is step into this discomfort, never get comfortable with things, and really challenge your worldviews. Like, what did you grow up with? What viewpoints? What values? What did that look like for you? And how does that show up in you as a therapist, as a supervisor, as a supervisee? And being able to sit with our supervisees, like, this is my worldviews, this is what's shaped me, what is yours? Okay, now how do we come together so that you can be your authentic self, I can be my authentic self, but we can still grow together and learn how to really be the best clinician that we possibly can be.
Yeah, I think I finally got into a point where I feel like I belong in the counseling field as a supervisor, that my place isn't just a clinician. And I feel like there's like a feeling of empowerment that comes with that, because it's like I have a lot of great qualities to give this next generation of therapists. And if I'm being honest, I think that's what's encouraged me to do private practice, because I feel working in community mental health, there's these boundaries, there's these politics, there's a lot of like red tape that prevents you from really doing certain things. Obviously you always maintain ethics, but I just feel like there's a lot of limitations. If you're not playing the game, then you don't get the promotions. And it's like, no, I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to train supervisees. I'm an LPCS, well qualified. And the fact that I didn't get those opportunities when I was working in community mental health, because people didn't think I was qualified, even though I had the education. It was very impressive at times. That's been my experience.
Yeah, my experience, I think, more is with my age. People think I'm a lot younger than I am, and so it's always a sense of, nope, I'm older than that, but thank you. And so just kind of gaining that respect of, hey, I've been through a lot of education, I've done a lot of learning, I know what I'm doing, I've been in the field for a little bit. I deserve that respect, I deserve to be valued, and how can I take that and really grow in my supervision space with my supervisees?
This next question might be obvious, but I hope we can nuance it a little bit.
Yeah.
Get past the obvious. How do you want supervisors to bring up the isms that are often participating in?
Yeah, be direct. Be able to challenge themselves and challenge their supervisees, and be able to sit in that discomfort. If this may feel weird, this may feel gross, and this is going to be so important and vital to our work together. And so being able to say, hey, it's obvious to me that you have some type of ethnicity or race. What is it, and what does it mean to you? What does it look like for you? And asking them those questions, and then being able to say, hey, I'm biracial, this is what it means for me when I show my black side or when I show my Hispanic side. This is who I am, and this is how it comes up. And so then we're just bringing ourselves into it and everything that contributes to who we are.
Yeah, and I'm more of the experiential type. I wish we could go back to current events. I don't know, that might be showing my age a little bit. But we used to have to bring like current events into like certain settings and like process it. And I think about everything that's happening in the world currently, and I feel like some of these situations are our future clients or clients that we've had. So what would that look like if we're looking at current events and like processing it in group therapy, not group therapy, but group supervision. Thank you. To be able to say, like, how would you have a conversation with a family who, experienced this? I think it doesn't always have to be like real life clients. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world that can be very applicable. And I think if you wait until something happens, then you're being reactive versus proactive.
There we go. Yeah.
And that I think people do things under pressure, under stress, and they don't always make the best choices. So to have the conversation ahead of time, there's a sense of confidence that comes out. Like, okay, I know how to navigate this. I've been trained. We've talked about this. So I don't know. I feel like it's just like constantly tuning the conversation, and don't just have the conversation at the beginning of the supervision session of the supervision relationship where it's okay to talk about race and ethnicity. Just know you can always come to me, and then that's the last you ever hear about it. Bring it up. That's what I would say.
In every supervision, but also it allows for this place for the supervisee to go to their supervisor and say, you made this comment. And it was really hurtful to me because of A, B, and C. And that allows the supervisor to be like, oh my goodness, like I did not even know about that cultural awareness, and that's something I need to work on. and the supervisor gets to take responsibility for their own learning, their own growth,
Hopefully.
and well, that's our hope, is that they do it. But again, it gives our supervisees the autonomy to say this is not okay, and really starting to push away the things that are unhealthy and that is bad and that is harmful, and creates these harmful supervision relationships.
One of the things about being fully authentic in all times, blah, 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 is that we do sometimes forget our training, forget the professionalism, forget the ethics. More often than not, I mean, we often lose that the most with someone who's the most similar. And so, you know, if you're talking about, hey, my blackness is coming out, I'm meeting your blackness, and that's part of how our therapy experience is improving, how do you make sure that that stays balanced? At least with the students that I work with, that's often where they get lost.
Yeah, and I think this might speak to kind of where we are in our own journey, ourself of the therapist identity, where because we have like a stronger sense of self, like we're able to manage that a little better. I don't know if I would have had that same capacity to recognize that as an early clinician. So I do feel like with age comes wisdom. At least that's how I felt. And so I know when I might be crossing a boundary, or where my client might be like, oh, so how, you know, it goes from how was your weekend to like, oh, so what about your kids or this? Now we're like, well, you know, everyone's well, but how was your weekend? Like it's being able to redirect it versus like feeling like you have to tell, you know, that piece. So I don't know. I just feel like that's come with time.
I think it comes with this part of always learning and always going, like attending trainings in ways to enhance my competency. Is this reminder, like when I'm teaching and I'm like, oh yeah, this is an ethical guideline. Like yes, I know that, but now I'm taking it in a new perspective of how can I make sure that I'm using it with the work that I'm doing now, and what does that look like now that I'm a more developed clinician versus when I was younger. And so I think it's this learning piece too of never stop learning, never say I've never come to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm this great therapist that knows everything. I'm always like, what more do I need to know? What more can I learn? And I think that piece of being able to have that growth mindset helps for being able to remain with that professionalism.
Oh, and it reinforces the idea: the more you learn, the less you realize you know. So, I mean, the most arrogant therapists I've ever met are the ones that have been doing it for 8 months.
I talk about that when students come out and then they're charging these big fees. I'm like, I don't even charge that much, and I've been in the field how long? It's just like, what are you out there to do, and how are we out there to really support people that need this mental health? And I understand that balance of we have to make a living and we have to take care of ourselves.
Speaking of all that, we have people from around the world that will be watching this. How does some of this apply to fully other places that are not the U.S.?
I'm glad that you mentioned that. We actually got some good feedback. So in the presentation, I was really intentional about looking up statistics in the UK, whether it was like the percentage of clinical supervisors and what the demographics said about that. I mean, by and large, across the board, there's just more of an abundance of white supervisors, and yet I think it's important to realize that you're going to have to curtail certain things for the area that you're in. So yes, there's more abundance, but I think there's also something to be said about culture. Culture variables, they're static because culture varies. So even if you have two white people, someone growing up in poverty versus someone who was affluent, you're still dealing with a cultural difference. You grow up in another country and you're learning, always having a lens of curiosity means you are never, the know-it-all, if you will. Like the client is the expert, the supervisee is the expert. Tell me about your experience. This is what I've noticed. I feel like supervisors of color are more likely to bring up issues of race and ethnicity in the supervision session, and I think probably because that's kind of our everyday worldview. How does this impact me? If I watch a movie, now I'm looking at it from the perspective of like, if the main character was black, how would that, mull over? So yeah, I just feel like there's there's just certain things. It's not always race and ethnicity. There's ableism,
Yeah.
you know, so whether someone has a disability, whether somebody has neurodiversity, like all of those things contribute to like cultural differences. And if you're a supervisor, you're going to ask, how does that show up? How does that inform the way you think about problems, how you problem solve solutions? All of that's going to be relevant.
I think it goes back to this quote we always bring into our presentations by Margaret Mead. And it talks about this diverse gifts that everybody has. And so regardless of where you are in the world, each person you have an interaction with has their own diverse gift that they're bringing to the table, and being able to be open to learning about what that gift is how you kind of really attune to those cultural aspects.
Awesome. Yes, I would imagine, assuming the right disposition, that could also mean that a new supervisor could also be the best at times, because they have something to offer. And yes, the white male of the authority and supervisor status and professors and all that type of stuff. Yeah, we stole it, we took it, and y'all are finally at the table, and it sucks that it took this long. But I'm glad that you're standing up, showing up, saying, hey, this is an issue, this is a problem. By the way, you can also get supervision from us. You don't have to do it from Dr. Stillwell over here. And I think that's awesome, because it gives people the choice, the opportunity to see themselves differently in the eyes of authority figures.
Well,
So that's awesome.
even as far as seeing themselves differently, I personally think it would be really helpful for white supervisors to even encourage from the beginning, when you're taking on new supervisees, you have the opportunity to be in my position, to be in my shoes.
Yeah.
You deserve to be a supervisor. You deserve to be in this space. So don't limit yourself, to this particular dynamic, if you will. And I think unless supervisors are even having that conversation, because if I'm being honest, when we first entered into the doctoral program, it was Bryson that was like, these credentials are going to open different doors for you. You have the option to be supervisor. You have the opportunity to teach. And I don't know why this was like the first time I was ever hearing any of this stuff. Like, teach? Supervision? Like, what? Academia? It was just like lions, tigers, and bears. Like, it just seems like so like out there to me. But now it's like, yeah, no, this makes sense. And I deserve to be in this. I absolutely deserve to be in this space. And if I didn't feel it before, I absolutely feel it now, because it's like, now we see the gaps. And like this, we've had some really great, I can't even complain, we've had some really great, very empowering professors. And had they not had those conversations in the beginning, I don't know if we would be really sitting here, because I don't think we would have thought we belonged.
But I think that goes back to, if you are a white person, there's so much power you have in encouraging minorities to do better. Because I'm like she said, yes, we've only had white supervisors, but some of our supervisors or teachers in our PhD program have been the one that has really boosted us up of, you are capable of talking about this, you are capable of doing this, and
we need to hear your voices. Like, what? Our voices matter? Like,
yeah. I think back to my master's program supervisor, who I still have a relationship with, and it was her that would be like, I don't know, Alyssa, you tell me. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. But it was really her encouragement of like, my voice mattered, that really pushed it. Okay, I can speak up, I can say something, I can. And so I think white supervisors do have the power to be able to really encourage people, and that's important to know too.
Yeah, but we were transparent. It was very nerve-wracking to be people of color talking to white supervisors about what white supervisors need to do to help people of color. It was like, whew, this is the mother load here.
Absolutely.
But we need to have those conversations. It has to be uncomfortable, because that's the only way that change happens.
And we need to hear it. So thank you for being brave, for stepping up, for reminding us that we're not done yet.
Yeah.
We across we're willing to bear.
All right. Well, future doctors Young and Torres, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
I like the sound of that.
And appreciate it. Thank you for sharing with everybody else, and we'll see you around.